All right. Happy Friday, or if you perhaps are watching on Sunday. Thank you for tuning in to the Twice Exceptional Mom. My name is Shelby Long. I am the Twice Exceptional Mom, and I'm here with another exceptional parent, Miss Octavia Ammons. I've had the pleasure of working with Octavia. She's an excellent teacher, elementary school teacher, and she's also an amazing mother. And today we're going to talk about a very serious topic within the autism community that we definitely feel like parents and teachers alike need to be aware of, which is elopement. And I want to describe elopement before we get into it so everybody understands what it is and the dangers of it. So, elopement is pretty much described as when a person with autism breaks away from their caregiver and even a safe environment. It's almost for a parent with a child with autism, it almost seems like a switch flips and they just go and they're not aware. It seems like they're not aware that they're doing it's a fight or flight response to whatever stress they may be feeling in the moment. And there are a lot of dangers that come with this elopement. And we want to make sure that people who work with our children in the school system, daycares, I'm looking right now at an article from the National Autism Association, and it says a new study highlights mortality and risk in autism wandering/elopement. And this one is an older one. It's from 2017, April 3rd, 2017, to be exact. And at that time, 71% of children who passed away from elopement, it was due to drowning. 18% was they were struck by a vehicle. 4% struck by a train. 3% from hypo or hyperthermia. So probably they got out and were in the elements and weren't able to be found. 1% with the fall, and then another 3% from other types of trauma that differ from those examples. And so I wanted to talk to Octavia about this because she also is an exceptional mom and a twice exceptional mom at that. And she has experience with elopement and the dangers of elopement and what that looks like, how that affects the family. And she can also give insight for what caregivers can do because she's given me some advice as well, to make sure that children are being safe at home and at school in all different environments. So, Octavia, I want to thank you first of all for coming and for being willing to share your story. And I want everybody to listen to you and listen to you intently, because it's a lot. And I appreciate you sharing your story with me in the past because you recognized me and you recognized my child when I brought him up at the school, even though he wasn't a student yet, and you saw him. And I appreciate you pulling me to the side and talking to me, um, and preparing me so I can help prepare other people when they deal with my child. So, do you mind telling people what you've experienced with elopement?
Thank you for having me, Miss Long. Um, yes, my first son, Jabril, he did not have a diagnosis, but early on, I knew that something wasn't right due to him not reaching certain milestones. And by the time he reached age 2, he wasn't speaking any words at all. So we got him into Babies Can't Wait at the tail end of him being 3,
Mhm.
um, going into school at 4. And here in Bibb County, there was Butler Early Learning Center. I'm not sure if you guys know about Butler, but that
Mhm.
he attended. And then from Butler, he went into Burgard Elementary, and he was placed in PEC due from the documentation that they received from Butler because he still wasn't diagnosed. At,
Okay.
at that time, I had no clue about autism. I never heard of it before. This was 2000. He was born in 2000, so this had to be about 2004, 2003, 2004 when he actually got into the school system. So
So that was like starting off as like 4K or kindergarten when
um
you started the system.
for Butler, when he went to Butler, he was 4.
Okay.
And from there he went into Burgard and he was placed in PEC. and he didn't have an IEP. So in that classroom, he had, he had the teacher and he had a paraprofessional. And it was one particular day, he got up and he ran out of the room. And his teacher, they contacted me and let me know, that he did up and run out of the room.
Mhm.
So from there, the teacher was like, we need to have a meeting. We need
Right.
to have an IEP
To
meeting.
keep him safe.
This is not the fit for him. And I was so glad because I was a young mother, and plus I wasn't experienced in the Bibb County educational system at that point. And so I didn't know everything that was in place for students that had disabilities. So thankfully the teacher stepped up and said, "Hey, we need to get him the support that."
Right.
So we sat down and they talked about, everything, that all the accommodations that they knew from working with him that he needed. And from there, he was placed at Skyview,
Okay.
placed in Skyview Elementary.
Was it in an access class or an inclusion class?
It was, Miss Long, I can't even tell you what it was.
But it was a place where you felt like he was able to get more supports than they were able to get him at the previous
It,
school.
it
Okay.
was many students in the classroom. I don't even think they had over, I don't even think they had over 6 students in that class. And there he was able to get the chair with the restraints for him to be able to sit in. And I think they had about 2 or 3 people working in that room.
Can you describe to me, because I know you mentioned that to me when I shared like a little bit of an elopement issue we had
Yeah.
just recently with my son, like, because I think I know what you're talking about because I feel like I've seen something similar. His occupational therapist, is it like kind of like the ones where they have a spot for their hands? And does it like, I don't know, does it have like a belt around the waist, kind of like a seat belt? Like how much restraint, I guess, is it like when we're
It's
I don't really know what to visualize as a parent 100%.
it was a wooden chair, so it wasn't able to be moved by the child.
Okay.
Flat on the ground. It didn't have any wheels or anything, and there was a strap, a hip strap, like a seat belt, and I think there also were straps that were able to go across the arms if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but I don't think my child ever had to use the hand.
The arm. Okay.
Was just for him to stay in place because he would roam. Like anywhere that I took him, I had to hold his hand and
Yes.
a tight grip. And it wasn't something that, he could just control. It wasn't controllable. If he was in a space and he was like, oh, I'm
Like
sorry.
had like a sensory overload or something.
Sensory overload, if he saw anything that, this just attracted him, he would want, if it was noise or anything that, yeah, he would want to take off. It's just excitement of new places, um, anything like that could just stimulate
It's
him.
kind of like almost like a trigger. Like
Yeah.
something happens, a loud noise
Mm,
or a sudden movement, anything that kind of could catch him off guard, then that might make him elope.
right. And also too with my second son, with Bryson, he's very high functioning, but if
His cute self, I gotta say, he's just as cute as he can be.
and even with him, I don't have the elopement as much as I had. Well, I don't, but with loud noises, I know we went on vacation one time and he heard of a fireworks.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And
He
he
caught
took
him off guard.
Yes, and he took off running straight towards the street.
Oh my God.
And I had to, I mean, full speed, like I could barely catch him, but yeah, the adrenaline just,
They
yeah.
just go. And like my son's case manager, and she's amazing, Miss Colson. And we talk and we're like, that autism run needs to be studied because I'm like, they could beat Usain Bolt because it's like how fast they go. And it's like you could blink and they're gone
Right.
and like have traveled a good distance
Mm-hmm.
really quickly.
Really fast.
And like you could have sneakers on and you could be booking it and be a runner and still be struggling to get them. It's almost like they have blinders on and they just go full speed ahead. And it's like they're just
No
going, like
danger.
a switch flips and they're just gone. And they're not paying attention to anything that's happening around them. They're just off to the races and you're trying to catch them.
Right. I know you wanted me to talk about also the dangers and the dangers of it. With my first son, Jabril, we were living in an apartment complex and he would get out. Well, he not get out, but he attempted to
To
get
lead the apartment. Yeah.
to leave the house. So then I knew I had to take precautions. So I added extra locks on the doors.
We have all the locks. Yeah.
Yeah. So one particular morning he got up and he wanted some breakfast and I fixed him breakfast and uh he ate and I had pushed the sofa over to the
Mhm.
door to cover the door because I saw he was able to actually get up and unhatch the lock that I had added on. So I pushed the
Oh,
sofa.
wow.
He wasn't able to move the sofa. And I was upstairs and he actually moved the sofa just a little bit. And I guess he climbed up on top of the sofa and
Mhm.
unlatched the door and he got out. And yeah, he went missing and he was missing um I would say from around about 1 o'clock that afternoon until about the next morning, and that's when they found him in the lake. So it is a very, very serious situation. And before then I had never heard about autism, never heard about a child getting out, doing it, all of this. And then it's like right after that, it's cases, 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 cases. And it's a serious issue. And I think it should be addressed, like you said, in school as well. Like you need all of the precaution because it won't take a child
Just one time.
one time to get out of a classroom and hit a front door and they're in the street.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine like so I was lucky with the elopement situation that my child had the other day. He eloped from his class, but he went to another class with a teacher that he was familiar with. And
Right.
I'm just grateful that he didn't get out the building.
Yeah.
Um,
Because what if he would have wanted to go to the playground?
Right. I mean, and not only that, we live in a neighborhood. Like I've had the fear that, and because I wasn't in the building that day, I had taken a sick day. And what if he said, well, I want mommy,
No
and
one.
he tried to go home? You know what I mean? It's just a really scary thing. Um, and you know how much like I admire you and admire your strength, and I appreciate like how you advocate for Bryson and other kids too, and like share your experience because people really are just bona fide ignorant. And I'm hoping that the more parents like us talk and we share things that we're experiencing, that people will get some more empathy about them and will behave differently because they're aware of everything that's happened. Because like what you're describing, that's a parent's worst nightmare, and then you've done all the things that you thought you could do. You would not think that a child would be able to get out like that. You would not think that they could move a piece of furniture, but they're also really strong too sometimes. Like when they have those when they end up eloping, they are strong. Like even when you catch them, if they, push back, it's sometimes very difficult. And I think it's really important for people to understand that when they're making these rosters for these classes or they're allotting the funds for these schools and these classrooms, that they're making sure they're putting enough personnel in there and like different types of locks. I know there are certain locks you can put on doors in schools to keep the children safe, like where they could get out if it were a fire, like it's like maybe like a trigger or something I think you can pull to get out that maybe the other kid wouldn't know, but just putting things in place. Like we've asked for a fence to go around our school, and and our principal has done everything for it, but we haven't seen the results of it yet. But my son's not the only child that elopes at that school, and it's a
That's
big wide world out there, you know,
right.
and when they go, they go.
There you go.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Octavia?
I say that's true. And I mean, I see it more in your low functioning autistic students than the
Hmm.
functioning, and especially with your nonverbals.
Oh, especially with the nonverbals. I agree because when they're nonverbal, I think a big part of it is they are scared. They are caught off guard and they don't have the words to express it. So
That-
they show you. And a lot of times people don't understand that some of the behaviors they're seeing from a child that's diagnosed as ASD is not necessarily regular aggression. It's not necessarily just disrespect or bad behavior. It's literally an expression of frustration because they can't get the words out. What I explained in one of my son's IEP meetings, I was like, anybody who's seen The Miracle Worker about Helen Keller knows the difference that Anne Sullivan made. When she first got there, Helen Keller was beating Anne up. She punched, knocked out her teeth. You know exactly the story
I
I'm
remember
talking about
that
from
story.
Journey. Yeah, knocked her teeth out, injured her, did all types of things to her. But once she was able to start signing and
Mm-hmm.
express what she needed and what she wanted, that violent, seemingly impulsive behavior ended because at the end of the day, people need to realize that body language is also communication. Them
Right.
running is a communication. If they get angry and they knock something down, they're letting you know, I didn't like that. They might not have the words to say it, but they're showing you, you
Mm.
know. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to know. And I think what are some other ways you think that parents could try to help protect their children at home if they notice that their child is an eloper? I know we have a couple things in place in my house. Like I hope I never have a fire in my house. Because we've got like special bolts on different doors, or like for my patio, it's one door to get to the patio, and it's another door to get out the patio, and then it's the back gate, and the back gate is locked. So
Right.
it's on the door I'm trying to sort out right now is, Alan Reese has figured out how to open the kitchen door, and that leads into the garage. We just hit the button to open the garage. So my
Mm-hmm.
thing is like, I'm gonna have to figure out something. Like, am I gonna have to change doorknobs? Because my ex-husband, he put those safety doorknobs on, the ones that are hard to grip. Because that is one thing my son and a lot of kids with autism have difficulty with those fine motor skills, so they can't do that little tiny grip to
That was on
open
all my
stuff.
doors. Yeah, when I had my last son, I put those on all the doors
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know whether or not he would run or not, and just in case, because I was
Right.
like,
Right.
oh, they just spin around and he can't even grip them. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
really good. I just recently took them off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, you're good. You're good.
Like, yeah.
He's not a runner. So I was like, okay, I guess I can take these off because when I have visitors, they be like, I
What
can't.
is this? But that's a very true thing too. It's a constant of educating of other people. Like you said, when you have this, it's like, oh, well, I gotta have this. I mean, I'm sure like when people come to my front door to hear, they're probably like, what kind of lock does that lady have on that door? The right one to
Right.
keep them in.
Be- they're very smart. So eventually
Extremely.
they will figure them out. So
Yes.
keep coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, I got to get another camera. I've got cameras for two of the entryways. I need a camera for the third one as well. It's the garage. I got to get that garage situation squared away.
Right.
Um,
Have you seen the device that they've been advertising? I'm not sure if it's like a watch or a necklace or something. It's like a monitor for that specific
I
thing.
think I did on one of the articles, like I was looking at about it, I feel like they had a list of a couple different things that you can put on the kids and their bodies. I think even some people do, what's it, the air tags, like
Yeah.
on certain stuff, like on shoes and different things to try to keep up with them and get with them because you just don't know what to do. I'm wondering even too, like maybe doing like a ID bracelet or something like that, or something that explains it. Because I know with my daughter, with her food allergies, we bought these special bracelets that had like all the allergens and things on it, like medical bracelets where you could put. I'm wondering if that company at this point, you would think they maybe would have put something on there about being nonverbal or something like that that you could put on there, or maybe put the address or something to get the kids to wear so you could hopefully get help if somebody gets your child. I
Right.
mean, just the idea of it is it's just terrifying. And I think that people just need to understand it's not like the child saying, you know what, I feel like going for a run right now. Whatever we can do to put in place for them to try to keep up with them, to make sure they can, if they're somebody grabs them because they see them on the street or in the hallway at a school, that they know which child it is and where they belong and who they go with and why they're maybe not where they're supposed to be.
Right.
And I'm not going to say what people should do. I'm going to say what my hope is. My hope is that people move from being reactive to being proactive with the behaviors that we're seeing an increase of. Because like when we had our data dig day today, a lot of us were talking about how more kids are showing more behaviors, like they need an IEP, like they need to be in the program for exceptional children, and that it's a long wait list for getting kids tested, whether it's within the school districts or outside of the school districts.
Mhm.
But we need that information in order to provide the supports. But I would hope that at some point that we quit waiting to get something on paper and just use common sense, and people just put more personnel in the building that's competent and have more, I guess, boots on the ground is what I would say, more boots on the ground to support the teachers, because there's a higher need, and COVID did affect the children. Like I said, he was at home, he turned one, and his birthday is April 11th. So we shut down school, I think it was like March 15th when we went home in 2020. So
About to be, yeah, it's a year now.
yeah, so
This
he
week.
Right. So he had turned one. He turned one like about a month after we closed, and then he turned two in the pandemic. We were just starting to get back out because it took them a whole year to even get the vaccine to get back out and go back into, those settings. And I knew that Alan Reese needed something else because I'm a teacher. I knew because I'm seeing like he was a talker that stopped talking. So that's when I noticed something was wrong. And he had a milestone issue too with walking. He started, the greatest number one months they want to be is like 18 months. And he started walking at 18 and a half months. But because he had nystagmus where his eyes would bounce, it was kind of like six, one half a dozen, because that visual issue can make it hard for you to walk because of your depth perception and different things being off. So it's kind of like, he's a little late walker or whatever. But he was talking and then he stopped. And I mean, we had Lindsay, taking care of him at the house while I was teaching virtually and everything like that. And it just was like he started to regress. And when I talked to Brandon and told him like we need to go ahead and see something about this. I'm like, I have 2 degrees of early childhood education. This is not what is supposed to be happening. But for him as a parent, I could tell he was worried about him. But sometimes we go into denial because we don't want to think, something's wrong with our child,
Mhm.
especially because they're extensions of us. Because sometimes it's like, well, if something wrong with my child, you saying something wrong with me, and instead of looking at like, is something wrong, saying, yes, they're different, but their difference does not make them deficient. It doesn't make them less than. There's plenty of children with autism and other exceptionalities that are extremely bright, that have high IQs, that are setting records and doing all types of things. But we have to focus on their strengths and not, just on their weaknesses. And by the thankfully he listened to me and we were able to talk to the pediatrician and get him in Babies Can't Wait also and get him in occupational therapy, speech therapy, and we're seeing the results. But that's because I knew better because I was a teacher.
Mhm.
But all these other parents, this, it's like, and even you said like younger parents, because I'm an older mom with this one, I'm a seasoned parent.
Right.
I'm gonna be 60 at somebody's high school graduation. But is what it is. I'll be retired at his graduation, hopefully looking very well rested. But they don't know. And so these kids are just now getting into the school system because he's in kindergarten and they're just getting the school system. And now the families who didn't really have that background, they're like, oh, it's a problem that they weren't talking yet. They didn't know. They did not know, or if they knew it was a problem, they did not know how to address it or who to address it with to
Yeah.
get these supports. And I guess what I'm saying is like, if we know we have all these COVID children, we know that at this point, the children who were at home in COVID are between like 3K and second grade right now, is that little generational group right there. Those grades really need a lot of help. Those teachers need a lot of help. It's a lot of behaviors in there. It's a
Yes.
lot to ask it's one person to do. Kindergarten in Bib is one kindergarten teacher and a parapro for the regular ed. But I mean, if you have over 20 something kids in there and then half of them are sped, but only 5 of them are diagnosed, you're not getting the support you need.
No, you're not.
And it's not safe for the teacher, it's not safe for the kids. And
No.
it's hard to teach in that environment.
Yes.
So I don't know. I want people to take a look at what's actually happening and have like a common sense approach of, you know what, the kids are not the same. We do need to look at the data from COVID.
They're not the same, and you do need that extra. Just in the regular gen ed class, you need support nowadays.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll say I'm blessed. I have a pretty good roster for the most part. But like for some of my teammate that has inclusion, the behaviors are more extreme. Some of the behaviors are more extreme than what we've seen in the past. And I'm sure that lack of socialization has played into that. That being at home or or getting interventions later rather than earlier, that affects that. And the teachers need help with that too. I think even like when we go through like mindset training, we're taught we're taught like how to approach a child that's, in a particular type of situation. I think that's all good, but I think we need to know why is that child even getting to that place too. I think that makes a difference because there's a difference between a child who has an anger management issue having that as opposed to a child who has a speech language delay reaching a level of frustration. There's a difference between a child I don't know, just having some other type of need. It's some needs that are based off of choices. It's some things that are happening based off of choices. And it's other things that happen based off of like neurologically how some of these kids are wired. And
Yeah.
it does make a difference. And it should affect the way that people approach a child. Because and I keep it 100%. I say I know the difference between what's in my son's IEP and when he's being BAD. Like
Mm.
I hold him accountable when I know he's making a choice and he's just being stubborn. But when I can tell, like, no, this is related to his mixed receptive language, disorder, that he's not able to express himself, I'm going to treat that differently than him just being mad. You know what I mean? And I think it's important to look at the behaviors and look at the antecedents, like what happened before, what was the trigger, what was the catalyst, and change that too. I think it just all goes together. And at the end of the day, we just need to I think for teachers, paraprofessionals, even other students in the building to a certain extent need to be aware of autism and what it looks like. And so they're not maligning some of these kids with their behaviors and they're trying to be more empathetic. Like I'll give an example with my class. Someone brought my child to my classroom to share a behavioral issue he had. Again, he fixates. So while they're talking to me about him, Alan Reese was saying over and again, I need a muffin, I need a muffin, I need a muffin, I need a muffin, I need a muffin. So my second graders think like this is like wildly hilarious. I need a muffin, I need a muffin. And it's funny to them. And so when he left, I was like, hey guys, I got to talk to you about my son. I said, I heard some of you laughing at him because he was repeating something over and over again. I said, well, my son has autism. Do you know what that is? And they're like, no. And so I pulled up Sesame Street, Meet Julia, and we
Yeah.
watched. Mhm. And I'm so grateful to them for bringing that character. And
Sorry.
you have you used it with your class too, Octavia?
I haven't, but I loved it when I saw it.
Because it nails it. They did such a great job, like with that character, because sometimes she wants to talk, sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she tells them these amazing things that they wouldn't have thought of. Other times she's just quiet.
Right.
Um, and when I played that, it's been so funny. When I played that video of Julia, the Meet Julia clip, and talk to my kids about it. Now, when they see my son and he comes in my room, if he does something that may be perceived as off-putting or weird or loud, they don't laugh at my child. They say, "Hey, Elvis," and
They,
they say, "You need help."
they love it. They're
They
gonna help.
do. They do. They treat him like he's their little buddy. Like they want to, and I guarantee it, anybody in that building thought they were going to say something negative about my child in front of one of my students. I could definitely see one of my students saying, hey, he has autism, he can't help that, and we need to accept other people. And I think that that goes to show like how far empathy can take us with these kids, and we can learn from the children too. And regardless of what's being said politically and everything, empathy is a superpower. Empathy is what brings us together and allows us to see ourselves and one another and to really care for each other.
Right,
And I
right,
think the more of that we can do with being empathetic, with educating people and sharing, being vulnerable like you and sharing like, hey, this is something serious, the better off like we all are. Every time I sit with an exceptional parent like you, and I am just beyond grateful because I'm not gonna cry about it, but every time I meet with a parent like you, another parent reaches out to me. Every single time I posted a video, I've had like 2 or 3 people reach out to me, and they're sharing with me other things that are happening with them and asking me for help and asking me for resources. And I'm able to get it because of people like you who are willing to talk, who are willing to share. I'm able to have an easier time with my child because you came to me and you pulled me aside last year and you talked to me about your experience. And it made me feel less alone, because it is very frustrating. It is very hard when you're always trying to explain your child to somebody. And
right,
and we love our kids and we want to see the potential in them. And I know God does not make mistakes. And I know my child has a purpose and he has a destiny and he is meant to be here. And it's hard to try to feel like you have to convince other people of that over and over again. And I'm so grateful to you, Octavia. Like you don't even know. Um, for even you even sharing what happened, because I called you and I was upset and I knew you were the only person I could call. I'm so sorry. I knew you were the only person I could call.
and because that's
You know, to talk to me about it and talk to other people about it because it's so scary.
it's so scary, so scary, and you try to do everything that you know to protect them.
It is not enough
And
sometimes.
it's hard to put them in the hands of other people that
Bryson.
know them or don't understand and why they do the things that they do. And you just want, I can see you just really want people to understand the severity
Yes.
of it all and to put in place what needs to be in place to keep your son safe so that you can, you got a job to do while you're there, and you can't teach effectively if you're worried about your son.
You're not. I can't. And like I said, I'm grateful to you I'm grateful for you being vulnerable and being open and sharing your story. And I'm so sorry that happened to your baby. And I mean, I don't even have the words. I can't even imagine. But I'm grateful that you're sharing. So hopefully that another parent doesn't have to have that story. Another parent doesn't can say like what you were saying, like he didn't have a diagnosis. And you can say these were things you're telling people what you saw. So if they see that their child's doing that, they can get that diagnosis. So then they can get the support and get the right environment for them at school, and they can get the right things for them put in place at home so they can take care of their child.
Right, right, right.
And so, I mean, I think that you've done an excellent job educating everyone today about the perils of elopement, that is not a choice, is not a conscious choice that's being made. It's not a game. It's not, if the parents could stop it, we would stop it. We can't
Right.
stop it. And I always like to reiterate to people, when whatever you're dealing with my child with at school, I promise we're dealing with it at home. We are dealing with it at home. I don't make excuses. I told them what they were getting when he had his transition meeting. I said, we need a third person for him. He elopes. They did not even tell me at the school that he transitioned from that he eloped. I asked.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed he was doing it at home. He
Right.
buck out the back door. That's luckily that's the one that has the double door. So when he's in the living room, he can go out the door and he's in the screened-in patio. And then there's another door with like a little teeny hinge. He's got to get out there, and then he'd have to get out the gate. But like I keep the alarm set at the house. I ain't scared to be in my house, but I keep it set because when he opens that door and he hears that noise, that keeps him from going.
Right.
It's like whatever trance they get in that makes them want to go or think I'm just gonna get out this situation. Once that alarm goes off, he's like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you simmer down, simmer down. You need to be sitting down. You're doing too much, And I told them, I said he needs another person. It is a safety hazard for him, and I want other parents to know, like, if you see that when you're in an IEP meeting, you need to advocate for your child. They probably will not suggest it for you. So you need to suggest it yourself. You need to look at what behaviors your child is demonstrating at home and consider how that translates into a school building, and what safety precautions need to be put in place to keep your child safe based off of behaviors that you've seen. Because they're not going to, in my experience, I don't see people recommending a lot of stuff in meetings that require more money or more personnel, unless you as a parent have to make the case, and then that will come up. I'm very grateful for the people that have worked hard to put things in place for my son. I'm very grateful for the people that serve my son. So this is not a complaint or anything like that, but it's just friendly reminder to parents that that's your number one job, is to be your child's advocate. And no one is going to know your child better than you, or say things, or know exactly the behaviors your child has to put things in place for them. And a lot of the things that my son has in place with his plan is because I recommended it, but I only know to recommend it because of my background as an educator. And that's part of why I'm doing this, because I feel like, especially like dealing with my ex-husband and stuff, he's like, golly, like if you weren't a teacher, we wouldn't even know what to ask for. We wouldn't even know what to do. And I really wish, like nationally, like my goal, my vision would be for there to be a Transparency in Special Education Act. Like so parents could go to, I would love for parents to be able to go to an IEP meeting, and instead of getting that piece of paper with a teeny tiny writing that has all these parent rights and this legal jargon that nobody knows, instead it being a list of diagnoses, a description of what that diagnosis is, and then a list of the person for whoever is in charge of that in the district. And then below that, the different types of accommodations or modifications that can be made to the environment or assignments to address that deficit. And then ask the parents which ones they want. Like,
Right.
be proactive, help them pick to do what's right. Because at the end of the day, especially if we're looking at these numbers and how autism is exploding, and there's more people with autism, ADHD, and all these different forms of neurodivergency, well, they're going to be adults one day.
Yeah.
And we need them to be able to function. We need them to be able to have the skills in place. So we have enough doctors and lawyers and teachers and other types of professionals. But that requires us as a society to really, really invest in these children and invest in their education and to give them accommodations and modifications they need so they can push beyond certain things that they're doing and not being okay with, well, this is like with not being okay with a one size fits all education. Like I gave another parent an example today, like one of the assignments my child's teacher gave at the beginning of the year was like, and he already knew how to do this anyway. That's another thing too, though, but that's a different conversation for a different day about them being real smart, some of them. And then they're like, they're going to do their work because it's easy. So like, let's say, I'm trying to see if I can get in the camera. I don't think I can. Let's see. Well, let's say it was the letter T and he had to circle the letter T. Well, he doesn't have the fine motor skills to use a pencil. But guess what he can do? He can go T, T, T.
Right.
He met the standard. Can I identify the letter T? The answer to that is yes.
Mm-hmm.
He met the standard. Did he circle it? No, because he has difficulty with the pencil grip. You know what I'm saying? So but he's shown that he can master the standard. And we have to, again, educate teachers and help them get to that place, because I think it's baffling at this point, and even myself, I'm guilty of it. It's baffling that we're not all required to be special education certified with the way the numbers are going.
I had that thought.
It's baffling that we're not required to take classes on special education law, yet we're held responsible for FERPA and IDEA and ADA and making sure that we're following these IEPs, because the IEPs and the RTIs and the 504s, all these are, well, the IEPs and the 504s are legal documents that we're beholden to, but we're not taking law classes on it. Have you ever taken a class on education law?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I think it's, like I said, I think a lot of it is educational. I think that I hope the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I hope that they do start sending us to get more trainings about special education so that it's not as foreign for us to figure out accommodation, modifications, and differentiate instruction. It's not like hard to come up with. And even just like that, even not just special education, also gifted certification. I think a reason I do look at it differently is because I do have my gifted certification. So I'm well versed in DI and how to do things, but every teacher is not gifted certified. So that's another thing to look at. So then you can see that some of these children, a lot of the kids in the gifted program are neurodivergent also. And that's why I said twice exceptionality, because giftedness is an exceptionality and so is autism is an exceptionality. But I think we have to, my hope is that as a community, as a state, as a country, that we start doing more for the teachers, because we have a high demand, high stress job. And the pay does not match the expectations, and they keep swearing up and down it's a teacher shortage. It's not a teacher shortage. People have chosen retirement because the level of what they were asked to do has exceeded what they can in their capacity and their time and energy to do. And rather than paying more to keep really good seasoned teachers, such as ourselves, because you're a fabulous teacher, instead of paying more for that, they're lowering the bar and taking people who are still in college or who are still working towards certification. I was a TAP teacher, so I ain't hating. I started teaching before I had my certification too, but I did have a degree. And some experience with children beforehand. But instead of lowering the bar, saying, oh, it's a teacher shortage, why don't you start putting more money in it? Show that you're invested in these kids and you're invested in having the best, most qualified teachers for them, who are well-versed and who know what to do. Why aren't we paying teachers more to be in these Title I schools that are on these failing lists? They're going to keep being on the failing list because they can't. Why would somebody pick a failing school if you're going to get paid the same amount to be at a school that's passing everything? It's
That's
not incentivized. Why would you want to volunteer to be a sped teacher when you got to be beholden to all these IEPs and all these different plans and stuff, and you're getting paid the same amount as your teammate next door that's not? Why would you want to teach third, fifth, and eighth grade when the test, when you got all this pressure on you for milestones testing and it's tied to funding and CCRPI and report cards and stuff, and you getting paid the same as your neighbor, but you're staying late tutoring other people's children for free? Like, these are real conversations. It's not
are legitimate conversations.
right. It's a real conversation. And and then they turn around and you hear like these echo chambers in society, like you hear, talking points from podcasts and stuff where they want to turn around and blame educators, but educators are oftentimes giving their last to other people's kids, giving their very last. I'm very grateful to the people that have taken time to teach my son and my daughter, because they're definitely some characters. There's some wonderful children, but they have their moments like anybody else. And I'm grateful. But we have to show that we value them. When Joe Biden ran for president first time in 2008, he talked about education because, Jill was an educator. And he said, you show me a man's budget, I'll show you their priorities. And our budget as a nation is not showing that education is a priority, but that is the key and the gateway for everything else that we want to see happen for our kids. So we've got to invest in getting them the right parapros, educating the teachers to understand the neurodivergent children as well as the neurotypical children, and how to best serve everyone and give them appropriate supports so they can be happy to do that job and not just stressed about it.
Right, right.
Don't get Annalisa has it.
Mhm.
She doesn't have the charger. He doesn't know that though. I think it's in my bag. I think it's in my bag. And I mean, and this is, and I usually don't film with them here when I can, but it's real, and I don't have a problem with people hearing like he's about to fixate on this charger. He's about to get ticked off. We about to get that I call it that autism finger, because he started going like that. I talked about in one of the videos, I was like, you want to make sure people know your child has autism, because somebody might think they're wanting to fight them or getting in their face, but they're really just trying to say like, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. But it's perceived, again, it's an educational thing, it's perceived differently. But I'm not going to hold you. I just want to say thank you, and thank you for letting me ugly cry a little bit with you. I really wasn't intended on it, but it's just such a serious issue. And Octavia, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for the time that you've given me today, and also on other days when I talk to you about my baby and what I need for him and being in place of him, and just modeling being that attentive, supportive, exceptional mother that you are. And you're just doing an amazing job with Bryce.
You're doing an awesome job.
Honey, I'm learning from the best. I'm putting the best people
Listen,
around me, and you're one of them for sure.
your attitude and your positivity is awesome.
I can't slack up, friend.
Yes, it is.
I can't slack up if I don't do it. And like doing this is it's therapeutic for me. It's
Right.
supportive for me when I talk to moms and dads, and because it's like we all experiencing the same thing, but people are just holding so close to themselves, because there is a lot of stigma, especially in the Black community, about being neurodivergent, about being autistic. And certain people, like I talked to one of my colleagues today, she was talking to me about her son and trying to get him, and he's just gotten Babies Can't Wait, and he's diagnosed autistic. And she said she was at the store and he was having like a meltdown, but it was related to his autism. And then a random stranger told her she needed to beat his what. You know what I'm saying? And she was like, I just had to just walk out the store. She said, I was just so angry. And you don't want to feel like you're having to like explain yourself to folks over and over again, or even with people, church people, maybe seemingly well-meaning church people who be like, you just need to pray on it. You just need to pray on it. Well, maybe I did pray on it, and God said, this is the child I gave you, and they're gifted, and you need to find what's special in your child as they are and not try to change them. Maybe I gave you the child, like I feel like I was given the children I was given to change me. I feel
Mm,
like I'm a better teacher. I'm more attentive. I'm more empathetic because of the children God gifted me.
right.
And like I said, when you know better, you're supposed to do better. So I try to show up for people's kids as the teacher I want to show up for my children. Now I don't play the radio with them either, so I ain't Mary Poppins, but I love on them and I teach my tail off. And there's not a single person who will tell you that their child left my class and they didn't know anything. No, they're going to leave out there sharp if they do what I've asked them to do, you know.
Right.
And that's what all I want from my kids. I want the same thing back. But he is using these children to refine me and refine my attitude and to grow my patience and expand my mind. And I
Right.
hope that parents like us, when we're sitting and we're having this conversation, that we're helping other people do the same thing, expand their mind, dispel some ignorance, and help them become more empathetic for us and our children.
Right. And even with you saying that to help these parents, it's disheartening knowing that, as an educator, you can't really
Tell them.
tell parents when you
Hmm.
certain things that
Hmm.
right. Or I mean, you can hand
And
upon this and say this and tell them, hey, your child is gonna need more support here,
hmm
more support there, but you just can't say, hey, I'm
not to
seeing,
everybody.
I'm seeing this. And with me being experienced, like I spent majority of my years teaching early education.
Yeah.
So the milestones I'm very much aware of what they should be doing by the age of at least 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
So yes, and it's like when you give me a second grader,
And they're not even at that level.
right? Something is not right, but
Yeah.
we can't say so.
I tell people it's a fine line
It is.
because, I've been in this longer than you. I'm at year 20, Octavia. I've been teaching 20 years. Yeah. Since I was a baby. But I I will say like I'll be honest, within the last 2, 3 years, I've had 2 or 3 different children. I think I've had back to back, two children back to back, where I said to the parent, um, the parent was talking to me about an academic concern about one of their children, and the child had already been retained in kindergarten. I looked at that, and the child was cheating on everything because he couldn't retain anything. And the mom was killing herself. Like she was like doing her work, like trying to make sure she was tutoring him, studying him, everything. And I just, with my intuition, I said, can I talk to you not as Miss Long? Can I talk to you for parent to parent? And she said, yeah. I said, it's something else going on. And I said, he's not retaining information. He's already been retained once for kindergarten and he's still struggling. I said, and he's hitting a frustration level because he's still struggling. And so she was like, well, no, well, what should I do? I said, write a letter saying what you're seeing at home and that you think that testing may be beneficial. And guess what? She wrote her letter. We went through the process. We placed in PEC. And I mean, would I have that conversation with every parent? The answer to that is no. But I had built a rapport with that parent, and she had repeatedly expressed her, here, Alan Reese. Alan Reese, here you go. I found him. So he figured it out. She didn't have him. I found him. Bought some time. Bought some time. What
Yes.
do you say? Say thank you. Hmm. But I couldn't have that, but I wouldn't have that conversation with every parent, but it was the rapport that we had built up with one another where she could call me after hours and she was saying, Miss Long, I've been doing this, and it's just not working. And she was so relieved when he got placed in PEC because she knew he was going to get the help that he needed and that she could put a label on what was happening to him and he didn't have to be frustrated that he was doing all this stuff and it wasn't fruitful for him and he was finally able to get some successes and she was so grateful But every parent, unfortunately, would not necessarily have that response. There are some parents that will get angry if you even suggest or bring to them that something, might be going on or whatever. Um, I think I honestly feel like it's a discernment thing to know who you can talk to. Because I had another parent I had a conversation with because she was something similar with her child. And she was like, well, it doesn't seem like no matter, it's like, she's not trying. She's not trying. I said, yes, she is. She said, no, she's not. I was like, no, I see her. She's trying for real. She's really trying to work. She's like, I don't think she's paying attention. I said, yeah, she is. It's something else going on. And same type of conversation, end up having an auditory processing disorder. I didn't even know there was such thing as an auditory processing disorder, but it's just so many things that we don't see. We can't physically see with our eyes that are going on behind the scenes with children, and they do need help and they do need supports. But again, I think that was a matter of rapport and me
Mm-hmm.
having a relationship with those two parents and being okay with it. Because I've had other parents, I would just be like, gosh, I don't know, maybe speak with the pediatrician. And that would be the extent of what I would say to them, because then the pediatrician is the one that's going to have that conversation. Because, and even when I have had those conversations, I will also say this. I say, I am not a psychologist. I am not a medical professional. This is my experience as a parent. And this is what I've seen in my 20 years of education, that when I've had children with similar type of issues, they end up getting these types of services and kind of
Mm-hmm.
from
That's
there. But I think that what you said, like a big part of it is feeling like you can be honest with people and be open about what you're seeing. And you can't always have that conversation, but that being able to have a conversation is what is going to lead to the breakthroughs for their child to get the help they need if they actually do have something else going on. Because I will say, in the years when I've actually had those conversations, I hadn't been wrong yet. I hadn't been wrong yet.
oh, you haven't.
Mm-mm. And I, like I said, it's discernment and experience from what I've seen. But I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for everybody else. But if I think that if you come from the right place and you had a right relationship, you're gonna get a good result.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
It's just I noticed that you can, have that rapport or feel like you can speak to parents about it and
Mhm.
suggest certain things. That's the thing. Suggesting
Suggesting.
and parents won't follow through.
There you go. And that's a choice. And exactly. And
Mhm.
that's a choice too, because they have to decide whether they want to know. And I think some people are happier to not have a diagnosis. They don't want to put a name on it. And I've said several times on here, like my husband, he did not want, he was like, ain't nothing wrong with that boy, he fine, and I was like, no, it's something going on, and
Mhm.
once we started getting into it, and we started getting information, he has been so supportive. But it was so much fear attached with what's wrong with my child. And I think we have to reframe it so people aren't looking at it as what's wrong with my child, and look at it more as how can I help my child be more successful. Now,
Mhm.
and look at it as more so a behavior, or I don't want to say an ailment, a condition, a particular condition, and how can we work them out of certain behaviors, or how can we improve how they're navigating a particular health condition that they have, and not take it as them as an individual. Like I was talking to my aunt about some family stuff, and I said, some people have a difficulty, like when they have a disagreement with someone, for example. I was saying that one of my family members will, fuss like they're about the person, and make it about the person, like they're a bad person who did a bad thing, and really demean them. And I said, that's not how you want to approach it. You want to separate the person from the action. And I said, instead of saying that's a bad person who did a bad thing, that's a person that made a bad choice, and the choice it had a negative vibe to it or a negative consequence, and you want them to make different choices so you can have a different type of relationship, as opposed to making the choice. You don't want to make the choice the identity. And I think in the same way, when we're talking about neurodivergency and stuff, you don't want to make their diagnoses who they are. It's part of who they are, but it's not all of who they are. And it's something that you can work around, and it doesn't have to stop them from being successful. And I think it's all in mindset and how we frame things for ourselves and how we frame things for our children and how we push forward. Because it's some people that will look at it and will be devastated, and other people will look at a diagnosis and use it as a crutch and an excuse. And then I think as parents like us who look at it, we say, okay, this is what we're working with, and you're going to still do this, this, and this. And I still have expectations for you to be a performer. I still have expectations for you to do your schoolwork. I still have expectations for you to show what you learn and not just go be a selective mute when it suits you, and not show the teacher that you can read or you can do this. And I think it's just, again, even with parents, is educating parents on how to advocate and how to relate to their child once they get these diagnoses.
Right, right. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Octavia, is there anything you want the people at home to know as we wrap this conversation up?
Um, I think we pretty much covered the basis of it, of safety precautions.
Okay.
But I just want to thank you for having me.
I thank you for coming and for sharing with everybody. And I know that what you've given people is a lot that I think it's literally life-saving information, because people don't know what to do with elopers.
True. That's right. All right. I pray that this recording helps someone.
And it will, because you've been amazing. So thank you, Octavia.